There's a guy, you know, if I find it, I'll put the post on the screen, but his tweet on the screen. But he was basically talking about how he's met so many pad players who basically just like, man, they go through so many pads in a year, you know. Well, for people who don't know, let me say this for people who might not know fighting game terminology, like joystick controllers. You know, and they call them pad. I'm pretty sure Devin could raise one up on the screen right now. He probably always got one near him. There we go. So, yeah, a lot of people go through, pad players say they go through a lot of pads in a year, you know, even people in the comments saying they have like a graveyard of pads in their closet on the top shelf that they just, you know, don't get rid of for the fond memories. So, you know, asking you guys, do you agree with this sentiment that, you know, pads are something that you kind of go through very quickly, very fast? They're not as durable as you like them to be. A lot of people say they switched to arcade stick or hitbox just because they felt like they were more durable, they could withstand more, and they were tired of paying money for pads, you know, multiple times a year. So, starting with you, Mr. Bad Food Opinions, what do you think?
uh, I'm assuming you meant great taste guy. In terms of current controllers, what's that little tune they play with? So to me, I feel like the best controllers to me was the PlayStation 1. PlayStation 1 and PS2 controllers were solid. They would last you. Actually, I think PS1 controllers are probably compared to like roaches because they probably would survive a nuclear explosion. I have a PS1 pad that's still like my very first one,
Okay.
PlayStation 1, and it's solid. PS2, solid controllers. They would, you know, I had to get more of those, but they were more solid. PS3 was alright. I bought maybe two that I can think, maybe three throughout the whole PS3 life cycle. I think right now with PS4 I'm on like maybe four or something. And it's like I play a lot of course I play a lot of fighting games. I play a lot of shooters. So if you play those types of games, the controller's gonna take wear and tear more than opposed to just playing like single player games because you're playing these matches, you're doing a lot of high execution stuff and high tech skill, whatever it may be. But it's like, I don't know, man. They just don't seem like the D pads for me. I play pad like literal D pad. Like I don't rock with the analog too much when it comes to fighting games. They just don't seem like they're stiff when you first buy them, so it's really hard to like do inputs sometimes. And then like I've taken controllers apart, and when you look at the D pad, it's like one button. It's similar to like the 360 pad, which was the worst to me, the worst fighting game D pad ever created. Um, it was like one full button, but they changed it with the 360 Elite controller, the one you could like turn. So I think they made it like every input was separate. That's what you need to have the most accurate inputs. But if everything like this right here, this is when you take it apart, this is one solid piece. But you just see these grooves. This is one solid piece when you take it apart. That makes it a lot. It's a lot. It leaves a lot more room for error. So that means like you're trying to do like down four, but you might be literally pressing down four, but you might just get down or four, and that's really annoying sometimes because you mess up combos, mess up inputs. And I feel like with these controllers, PS4 controllers, don't get me wrong, they're still pretty solid, but they're a step down. I feel like from the older generation. Even with this controller right here has stick drift. So that means like if you just hit the controller just standing still, it's moving, or if you move, it'll stay like this even though it's in neutral. So and like the button sometimes stick, and I'm just like, yo, this it's annoying. Even this one, I took this one apart, and now I put it back together. One of the triggers is like an issue with it. And I'm like, I put it back together. Everything's working fine except for like one of the buttons. And then this one again, stick drift. This is my worst one. So I can't even play shooting games with this one because it's like it just starts moving around. I'm like, bruh, I've never had most of these issues with older controllers. So I do agree with the sentiment that if you're a pad player, especially if you play fighting games, And you don't even have to be rough with them. It's not like I'm like, you know, just doing this and throwing it across the room. Just from this regular play, like they can't take as much of a beating as they used to. Now, to caveat on this and to take this with a grain of salt, there are probably some of y'all players out there going ham on the controller just like I just was. So y'all, if y'all got a graveyard, that's on y'all. If you playing these games and you throwing them across the room, that's probably why you got a graveyard. Now, there are on the controllers, but I think some people just out here just doing too much with their controllers. Some people, you know, I've seen people the tournaments, they even arcade sticks, just slaying the arcade stick like it's just a piece of tissue. I'm like, bro, it costs money, and it's probably gonna be broken, and you're probably gonna have to buy another one. Why would you do that? So that's your fault, you know. But yeah, like, and these controllers, I wouldn't dare. Like, if you throw one of these hard enough, it's probably over with. If you throw one of these against the wall, it's done. I'm pretty sure something came loose, something disconnected, something is done, you know. So I agree with the sentiment that, like, being a pad player, you might have a graveyard of pads. But again, I think some of y'all be doing too much at the same time. So that has to be taken with a grain of salt. But yeah, I don't really know. Like, I know there's a brand called Battle Beaver. They specialize in customized controllers and stuff. I think one of my friends has one. I think he said it's pretty solid. And they like, actually, I think disconnect the D-pad, so they like saw it into separate pieces. And they have it like where it clicks, so when you press it, you can like, it's like contextual. You can feel it like when you press it. I like the idea of that. I might try one. They are a bit pricey, but I want to see how it plays. Kind of similar to like a scuff controller. They got like buttons on the back of the controller and stuff like that. Those are good alternatives, I feel, but they're just like a bit pricey unless you're like tech savvy yourself and know how to customize them yourself. I have been thinking about getting a hitbox, at least trying a hitbox out. I do play arcade stick, but not most of the games now I play on pad. The only game I really played predominantly on arcade stick was Marvel 3, and a little bit of Street Fighter 4. So I play stick still, but not as much. Like maybe 1% of the time I play stick. But yeah, just be careful with your controllers, man. They're not made like they used to be, man. Like Optimus Prime said, man, he thought they were made of stunner stuff, but they proven not to be. So.
You know, it's funny that same exact person that you just saw Undertaker last ride his arcade stick is the one that's gonna come up to you next match and be like, "Hey, man, can I borrow yours?"
Man, it's always like that.
Nah, I just saw what you did to yours. You're not about to do that to mine.
Devin knows who I'm talking about, but there used to be somebody who we used to play with who played grappling characters, and man, he be churning the heck out of
I know you talking about at the fighting game club.
Yeah,
I was thinking about it. I just wasn't gonna say the name, man.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah,
it's Zangief was serious.
Yeah. For me, just for background on myself, for the most part, I play stick just because, you know, I play primarily 2D fighters. For 2D fighters, I like Capcom or like anime fighters, I play stick just because I find it easier to do like quarter circles and DPs on stick than pad. But for NRS and 3D fighters, I play pad. So like anything that requires like actual directional inputs, I have to play on pad. Like NRS games, I know you can do motion controls for those, but let's be honest, motion controls in NRS games, it's weird. So I normally just play pad for like Injustice 2, Mortal Kombat and Tekken and stuff like that, and then play arcade stick on all the others. So I'm kind of half and half depending on, you know, what style of fighting game I'm playing at that time. But anyway, in terms of like controller stories for me, I'll start out by saying that for me, the controller that I had the most problems with in terms of it kind of going out on me and just having problems was a GameCube controller. And I know that might be sacrilegious to say because, you know, Melee players, they love their GameCube controller. The GameCube controller, it's not really the buttons or anything, it's the sticks. And this is kind of like a Nintendo problem overall. Nintendo's controllers, when it comes to like their analog sticks, they suck. Like ever since the 64, where it had like this weird nub thing that was like in the middle, and then the GameCube, the main analog stick, it's fine. It could be raised a little bit, but the padding that's on it, it comes off very easily. And the C-stick, I feel like that was the start of the whole console drift in terms of, you know, we talk about the Joy-Con drift. like there was C-stick drift back in the day with GameCube controllers, where if you use that C-stick way too much, it would start to drift off after a while. But the game that really ruined GameCube controllers for me, or just controllers in general, funny enough, and Devin's gonna know what I'm talking about, is Dragon Ball Z Budokai and Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi. Like those games, they ruin your controllers, because anytime you had beam struggles, you had to do you had to do exactly man. When I had Budokai 2 on the GameCube, man, I ruined like probably 2 controllers playing that game. And then when I finally got Budokai 3 on the PS2, the PS2 could handle it a little bit better. It didn't really, I didn't have like the rubber come off the sticks, or like the sticks experience drift or anything like that. But the poor GameCube, oh, it just couldn't handle me just doing that to it like every single day. So eventually those controllers kind of gave out on me. I think I had like 3 GameCube controllers, and I'm the type of person where I don't have like a lot of controllers usually with my systems. Like for the PS2, for the PS2, I think I had 3 controllers. But you know, back during that era where everything was wired, you usually had multiple controllers just because they weren't as expensive to buy. But come the PS3 era, where controllers are as expensive as the games themselves, it's like, you know, you have to be careful with that thing. So yeah, the GameCube controller, it was the one that I had the most problems with. And like ever since then, like my PS3 controller, it's been fine. Granted, I didn't have the Generation 1 PS3 controller where those felt like paper. Like if you threw that against something, it was done. But I have the one where it's like the DualShock 3, where they actually added like actual guts to the controller. Like I know the first controller, it felt like it had nothing inside of it. It was like light as heck. The PS4 controller, I still have the same one that came with the console, and I've had the console since 2014 or so. Yeah. But I just have one arcade stick for my PS4. I had 2 for the PS3, but that's just because at that point I kind of tried, like I was just getting into arcade sticks, so I tried out like an entry stick, and then I got one that was a bit more high end. And the one that I have now for my PS4 is kind of like in between. But yeah, in terms of like controller horror stories for me, that's it. Like Dragon Ball Z just destroyed controllers back in the day, and the GameCube unfortunately was the biggest victim of that. But yeah, right now I don't have like a big graveyard of controllers, just because I'm not that hard on my controllers anymore, and I also don't play fighting games quite as much as I used to. But at the same time, I definitely have some background of controllers messing up on me, and it's one of the main things that kind of keeps me from wanting to buy like a new Nintendo system, is that I really just don't want to deal with the whole controller problems, because it seems like after all these years, we're still having issues with, you know, the Switch, where it's having the drift and everything. So it's like, Nintendo, I just want you to get your act together. I'll give you money for your console, just give me a good product, and you know, yeah.
Man, I know when it came to controllers, one controller that was the analog was always getting stripped of its cover was the Wii nunchuck. Man, you'd always go to somebody else's house and they always had that one nunchuck that was bare, had the sharp corners on the circle. So when you're using it, you're basically cutting your thumb to death in whatever game you're playing.
The GameCube was the same way. It had the sharp corners on it too. So I guess maybe Nintendo just likes doing that, where they just have the corners on it. So if the rubber comes off, that just tells you, hey, you gotta go buy a new one.
Yeah, like it used to like crucify your thumb when you was playing Smash Brothers, and you know you jerking back and forth, and you know when you doing your Smash input, you hitting it like you the actual character. So next thing you know, your hand looking like it's been whipped to death or something. So you know, but I know, man, PS3 controllers, like I don't remember too much like with GameCube controllers. The C stick getting messed up too much, but when it came to like Nintendo 64, we were playing a lot of wrestling games then, so it really wasn't too strenuous on controllers and stuff then. Like Nintendo 64, we was playing wrestling games. And GameCube, I think GameCube was the system that I kind of missed a lot of the action on. I didn't play GameCube a lot. But when we started playing like Smash Brothers, Brawl heavy, we used GameCube controllers, and that C stick will go out, man, because you be jamming it, trying to hurry up and get all your. And a lot of times people would play. They wouldn't even use normal attacks. They would just constantly be using the C stick for every attack. Like if you were right, they're using the C stick to the right, or they using it down, or if you're using the sky, they using it then. If they jumping in the air, they're not even using A and B. They just using the yellow C stick. So, those were out really fast. And I know when it came to like PS3, man, we was playing Call of Duty, and there were like controllers that you knew when you plugged it in, you was always gonna have your dude just slightly going to the left, like in the stage, and it would mess you up so many times because you're trying to sneak somewhere, but your controller steady wants you to go this way, so you gotta be combating it, and then next thing you know, somebody pop around the corner, and you gotta hurry up and do that, and then you die, and you're just like, come on, man, like, why don't we just get a new controller? And it's like, because we don't want to ask mama to buy another one. So, so you just didn't get it. So you have to figure out a way to make it work. Or, when everybody brought their controllers over, you gave a bad controller to the dude who, kept losing, or he sucked anyway. So, you don't need it. You trash. So, so, but yeah, like I know we had a lot of PS3 controllers went out, because not only Dragon Ball Z Budokai, but Naruto Ultimate Ninja had stuff like that where you had to rotate the thing or jam the buttons and stuff like that. So we messed up some controllers doing that. And also Salt, you get mad and you basically like Tombstone power driver your controller, to make yourself feel a little bit better. So, I could, with the PS3 controllers, the pads and stuff like that, I could definitely see now why Luffy, after all these years, he's somehow still finding a way to play with a PS1 controller. So, yeah, and I really don't, I mean, y'all could tell me more about the PS4 controllers, because I kind of skipped that generation when I went to college. I was like, I got to do math now. I can't really play PS4 too much. So, but yeah, I know PS3 controllers, they was going out on us a lot from Naruto games and Call of Duty, because we played Call of Duty like all day, but I already talked about that in the last show. And Nintendo controllers, I mean, yeah, those Wii controllers and those GameCube controllers, we wore them out and they went out pretty fast. So, I never played Xbox controllers like that, man. Just the way they controllers were. I was so used to PlayStation controllers. When I saw an Xbox controller, I was like, get this thing away from me. I only played it because we went over to my friend's house one time and he had Call of Duty on Xbox. For some reason, he chose Xbox when everybody else had PlayStation, but that's his business. So, but I still didn't really like the controller too much. So, but Modern Warfare 2 was fun, I have to admit. So, yeah, that's my answer. Anybody?